He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
The thing that Aiping has is she has the widest view of anyone I've ever known. And I knew that if I was going to save my life, I had to follow her.
I doubt you will have forgotten Suzanne from the lodge.
Suzanne was this very spirited American
who first heard the guru on a phone call at an energy meeting in the States.
And she was a cocaine addict at the time. So again, very vulnerable.
Annie Kossoff, who filmed her for the BBC doco.
I don't know who, but someone convinced her to talk on the phone to Aiping.
When 2 stints in rehab failed, Suzanne turned to Aiping Wong.
Whatever this woman has, at the end of the phone call, Suzanne, whose family had quite a lot of money, decided that she had the answers to all her questions and she was going to follow her forever.
I had to learn from her what she knew, because she knew the answers to all my questions.
All of your questions answered. You can understand the appeal.
Her addiction to cocaine had been replaced with a kind of addiction to this belief system, really, I think.
Then, as we know, the veil dropped from her eyes. Suzanne's mother, Sharon, died of breast cancer, believing all the while that Aiping would cure her.
She died a really horrific death.
Suzanne left the lodge, distraught, but not before she and her mum had paid Aiping $1.5 million. Of all the ex-followers I'd spoken to, Suzanne was the one I really wanted to catch up with. Both Suzannes, actually, if that makes sense, the zealot and the disillusioned ex-cult member, to see where they were now, to see if they'd reconciled with each other over time. I'm still yet to catch up with her and find out exactly what happened, but...
Well, at least she survived. She's still alive, I guess.
When I did find her, Suzanne, the survivor, and asked her about Aiping, there was a surprise in store. Well, a number of surprises, actually. Kia ora, I'm Phil Vine from RNZ, and this is The Lodge, the fall and rise of a wellness cult, a podcast about healing, about the power of belief, its lasting effects on the believers and the believed. I'd been trying to get hold of Suzanne, the ex-follower of Aiping's from the lodge, and not having much luck. I worked out she's in Australia. Remember, she nearly made the US Olympic gymnastics team. When she didn't, she turned to cocaine, then to Aiping and life technology. I discovered someone by her name as a contact for a kids' gym school on the Gold Coast. About 23 calls later.
Hello?
Oh, hey, Suzanne, it's Phil. It took a good 3 months to get hold of her.
So what's up?
You're pretty hard to track down, I have to say. I saw on Facebook someone with your name doing gymnastics, and then I thought, now,
yeah, that's me.
I remember that you, because you did gymnastics at a pretty high level in the States, and I thought, maybe you got into teaching.
I did, and I set up my own business, and it was really, really successful, and I sold it, and the guy never paid me, and I lost everything that I worked for my whole life.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's been a really rough trip.
When Aiping started up the lodge in the late 90s, Suzanne was one of the original followers. She would have been in her 30s.
So I was the first student to come, and she would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go do these crazy exercises, and she would take me with her, and I would go and hide in the bushes and sleep because she did these crazy exercises with her eyes closed, so she didn't know what I was doing. And then she would go sit on stage, and she wouldn't channel a specific person. It wasn't channeling that she did, but what she did is that she was so empty, and the universe just provided her with information that she was like a conduit. But she would refer to Aristotle and Plato and all the different philosophers. And Jesus, and it wasn't like one person or one direction. She had knowledge, so much knowledge that would come through her. It was really very remarkable.
There was a load of remarkable stuff on that phone call with Suzanne. We talked for an hour 10. From the very start, Suzanne seemed extremely well disposed to the guru she ran away from.
Going to New Zealand and spending that time at Takara with Aiping changed me immensely as a person.
Yeah.
I think in a positive way, for sure. I don't think it was in a negative way.
It sounds like you're still quite a believer, even after after everything that happened.
Well, I definitely believe that she changed my life for the better. There's no question about it. Now, the fact that my mom died, that's very sad and was very hard for me, but I can't really blame her for that.
Really?
Well, I don't think so.
I remember you saying at the time that your mum totally believed in Aiping. And she had breast cancer, and breast cancer is treatable. I don't mean to upset you, but it's
No, you're not upsetting me at all.
cool. It's a treatable thing, you know. I know people have had breast cancer and there is treatment that you have, and your mum didn't seek treatment for one reason or another. And part of that was to do with Aiping.
She would have. Well, it was a huge part of it was to do with Aiping, but I don't even think, no matter what I believed or didn't believe, my mom was going to believe Aiping, and so nobody could have saved my mom because she had decided that she absolutely 100% believed in Aiping. And I mean, I really believe that my mom felt that that my mom had found what she had been looking for.
I guess when you say that no one could have convinced her, Aiping could have convinced her.
Aiping could have, yeah, you're right. That's true.
What about Giannis?
I'm thinking of the other guy that died with melanoma on his face.
Yeah, Giannis. And that actually is very sad. He was like a 30-year-old man who had a mole. That one, my mom was 63 years old. She had been sick a lot of her life, so that was different. This young man was healthy when he came to Takara, and it was a mole on his face that he didn't seek treatment for, and we just watched it get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and yeah, it's devastating, really.
Last time I spoke to Suzanne was in that beige Invercargill hotel room just after Giannis died, just after she left the lodge. So did she consider she ran away from a cult?
Definition of cult is like a group of people coming together and having their brains washed. Well, in a sense of yes, it was, but a cult isn't necessarily a negative thing. My brain needed to be washed. I mean, I didn't have any idea what life was about. So for me, it needed to be washed.
The passage of time really seems to have mellowed out Suzanne's views.
I think that there's been many, many cults out there that have been negative, from Heaven's Gate to the people that wore the Nikes and took the truth serum and all died. And the connotations around cult is definitely negative. So I can understand why you would be hesitant to use that word, but I think that probably it's the definition that suits what this place was, but I don't think it was a negative cult.
I found myself in the uncomfortable position of reminding her of her own experience as she'd recounted it to me at the time. Things like paying all that money to Aiping.
Yeah, actually, we lost a lot. We lost everything. My mom paid that woman $1.5 million.
So you lost a lot.
I lost everything, really. I mean, I did lose a lot. I did. But that money wasn't mine. It was my mom's.
Your family's money.
Yeah, it was my family's money. That's true.
What did you get for that?
Nothing. Oh, sorry. That's not true. I got a lot of wisdom. A lot of...
What did you learn, do you think?
I learned about energy.
That really kept me awake. Later, after we'd finished talking, I tried to make sense of it. I'd just been turning over what she said in my sleepy brain. It had quite an impact. Suzanne had kept insisting to me that Aiping had been ahead of her time. With her family background, why was Suzanne still so caught up in this philosophy?
Fathers a surgeon, sister's a doctor, both of her kids are in the sciences, a veterinarian and a cognitive scientist. And why would she be so into this energy healing thing, given all that she's lost? It's a mystery to me. It really is.
Suzanne also gives Aiping credit for helping her to kick the cocaine habit with a flexible, pragmatic approach to drugs.
She said, well, you can't expect Suzanne, and like my mom also was wanting to help me to get off drugs, but every time that they, you try to get off drugs, they make you abstain from everything forever. You're supposed to become clean and sober, and you're not supposed to take any drugs or alcohol for the rest of your life. Well, for me, that I didn't feel like that was, I had tried that and that didn't work for me. So Aiping, said, because I wanted to smoke pot. I said, can I at least just smoke pot? Because I wanted to get off the drugs too. Mm. But I didn't know how. But I thought, if I could wean myself off, like if I could just maybe smoke some pot and wean myself off. And Aiping said, yes, absolutely. That's what you should do. And when she said that, I was like, what? And, that's not where her perspective came from. Her perspective came from a whole different place that I didn't even know. But when she said that, yes, of course, she should be allowed to smoke pot, if that's what's going to help her to get off the cocaine. And it did. I said I smoked pot for a little while after that, and then I got off everything. But if I was never allowed to have done that, I don't know if I ever would have gotten clean.
I'm sure as a journalist, you've done lots of stories on drug addicts, but you have to replace it with something. And generally, it has to be a really strong belief system in yourself if you're going to get through to the other side. And that's what someone like Aiping would do. She'd fill that void with someone like Suzanne, who had been off her head for such a long time that when she suddenly surfaces and she's got this kind of mother-type figure spouting all this stuff that she just hangs on every word, But again, it takes you back to, well, I think it's atrocious. They took her money. Her mother died in pain. She took her mother in there, Hello?
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of crazy, but that was her need. And again, I couldn't say to Suzanne any more than you could, well, you shouldn't do that. That's what she felt she had to do to survive, I think.
And then Suzanne started recommending this new energy guy to me.
Have you heard of Joe Dispenza?
No, I haven't, no.
Okay. I don't know where he's based. I don't know if he's American, but I'll send you a link to him. So basically what Aiping was teaching us, he has proven scientifically now.
I'm not sure if that's true. I looked him up.
Disinvest all of your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional world, and then open your heart.
Dr. Joe Dispenza claims to be able to heal serious diseases with energy. This is him on a podcast called Unlocking the Power of Energy and Group Healing. He's talking about a patient that he's helped.
She said to the audience that the pain was so bad that when my family members and friends asked me how I was doing, I'd say I want someone to cut my head off. Mm. She could not get away from the pain, and that's how severe it was.
He is American, with an enormous following online. More about him soon. But it does show how these ideas are bigger than Aiping and very much alive and kicking. Back to Suzanne's energy experience at the lodge.
Do you think Aiping believed in everything she said? Because, some people are bitter. Some people do believe that they were completely ripped off and that they had monetized people's need to believe in something. Even, there was a lot of money changed hands in this whole thing.
Yeah, but there was, but Aiping wasn't actually the instigator of that. Aiping was a woman that had an immense amount of ability, and Sasha, her husband, snatched that up and realized that he could make a lot of money with her. And I believe that Aiping took on that same, I believe she also became a catalyst in the money getting, like in getting the money from people, but she wasn't out to get money when she started doing what she was doing. She was just teaching what she had learned throughout her life. And for her, it wasn't about the money. But Sasha saw that he could use her to make a huge amount of money. And so he did. And she was his wife. And she went along with it. I believe if you were to talk to Aiping today, and I don't know if this is true, but every person that becomes a master or well-respected guru type of person has the potential to get off course, because when you become so revered and looked up to, it's easy to fall off your course.
Do you think
you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Do you think she did fall off course, or do you think other people around her were making money out of her?
No, I think that Sasha definitely took her off course. And Aiping went, and she would probably admit it too, that she went off course as well. But without all that money, she wouldn't have been able to create what she created. But I don't think a lot of people made money besides her and her family.
Suzanne thought it wasn't just Sasha, Aiping's late husband, Alexander Fulep, who'd realised there was money to be made. But others in the family too. She says Aiping's daughter was quite wrapped up in the material world.
And so she would have been all for making money. But she was also very intelligent. She wasn't a dumb girl. She was a very, very intelligent girl.
And Suzanne says the same applies to her ex-husband, Aiping's former son-in-law.
He was a believer to some extent, but I also believe that he was also a catalyst in the money-making. I don't know how involved he was with Aiping before, but the Croatian culture compared to Aiping's culture and ideas are quite drastically different. But if you combine them together, it doesn't surprise me that Aiping got off course a bit and was trying to make money, because that was also going to further her venture of trying to evolve the human being. You know, her purpose was evolution. And if I look at the world now today, I feel like 100% what she was teaching us is exactly where it's headed. But back then it was such a big gap between what she was teaching us and where the world was, that it was like, I remember standing in the mirror at Carl Lodge screaming, saying, why did I have to come and do this ego training? Why did they pick somebody that was so materialistic and so far away from what she was trying to teach? You know, I was frustrated because I thought, why did I have to go through all that? You know, why couldn't they have chosen somebody that believed in it?
You chose them, though. They didn't choose you.
Yes and no. I mean, yes, my mom and I did choose them, but once I was in there, I didn't feel like I had a lot of options to get out of it.
Would you rule out going back and living at Takara Lodge and being her follower again?
Would I rule that out? No, I definitely wouldn't rule that out.
Would you do it?
I would. Yeah, 100%.
Wow. That really surprises me.
Yeah, I would. I would do it.
Gobsmacking. To me, anyway. You'll have your own thoughts. It certainly made my hamster brain go into overdrive. I guess the last thing that I expected was that after 20 years, she'd still consider going back to Aiping. After losing her mum, after losing $1.5 million of money, you know, she's still thinks that Aiping has something. Well, maybe she does. Phew, need a bit of a pause after that. I ran Suzanne's revised attitude to Aiping past documentary maker Annie Kossoff. Maybe Aiping has something, even if it is just the ability to convince people to believe in something. And that's, that not everyone can do that.
No. And there's a lot of, there isn't a lot for some people, if they don't have religious beliefs. It's a very challenging world that we live in. I think, the Western culture really, where most religions have been relegated to the dustbin. And it does leave a void, I think. And we need crutches, don't we? And whether that crutch is your family, your friends, or your religion, spirituality, most people need something. And so, of course, she spotted that. And yeah, like I said earlier, if she was targeting really rich people who were just trying to find themselves, that's one thing, by deconstructing them and giving them energy and then believing the whole narrative, shall we say. But when you're targeting people who are so ill and potentially dying, that's something else,
These ancient ideas that Aiping and other gurus harnessed and adopted are being manufactured for a mass audience, spread far and wide through the power of social media.
And then we started seeing, really dramatic changes.
This is Suzanne's new internet find, Joe Dispenza, talking about energy healing.
Really dramatic changes in people's health, like immediate changes in cancers, all kinds of health conditions, everything.
Dr. Joe Dispenza's got an Insta following of 3.6 million people.
The truth is that we are all made of energy, and everything is energy. So I feel like basically what Aiping was teaching, I feel like he has proven scientifically. And he doesn't know Aiping. He wouldn't even know Aiping from a hole in the wall. But he actually, I think, was in a severe accident and broke his back to the point that they said he would never walk again ever. And he ended up healing himself, and he walked out of the hospital.
Quite the Lazarus story. Dr. Joe advocates something called coherence healing, which involves multiple people with so-called brain-heart coherence, using their energy to cure patients.
So we all emit a field, and the information in the field of every single person is information that ultimately becomes matter, right? So what if you could change the information, train people with brain and heart coherence to lay a person down, get people to know how to get beyond themselves, connect to that unifying field of energy, and lay down their character, become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, no time, become pure consciousness.
Stephanie Baker from City University has conducted some research into Dr. Joe.
Yeah, he's interesting. He falls in a lineage of gurus who brand themselves really in terms not only of healing, but manifestation and self-transformation. As a figure, I think he focuses much more on health and healing, but I would situate him in this lineage of manifestation gurus who are, again, using the law of attraction, energy, the power of the mind to change one's reality. The difference with someone like Joe is that he's a really successful example of branding. So, many best-selling books, retreats. He's been able to profit and leverage off this branding much more successfully than others.
Without defaming him, what does your radar say?
I have a healthy degree of skepticism. He's someone that I've studied and written about, and I'm cautious. But again, I would just encourage people to be very careful when following these figures online.
And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, when I realised that the sort of stuff that Aiping was teaching way back in the 1990s in Eastern Europe and at the lodge was all over the internet. Energy healing in various shapes and guises is really hitting its straps. As you've seen from Suzanne's guide, Joe Dispenza, it's a regular money-spinning feature of the $5 trillion wellness industry. And based on what happened at the lodge, the deaths of Sharon and Giannis, I really wanted to pre-warn people about the possible fatal consequences of indulging in this alternative therapy. I'm not saying it's all bad, not at all. It absolutely serves a purpose for lesser ailments and conditions. If you're anxious, you can't sleep, there are proven benefits. It's just the idea of energy as a cure-all. Something that'll fix everything. It's the complete package, an exclusive, expensive panacea. That's when things get dangerous, especially when people are lonely, isolated, or looking for a refuge, and they join a bunch of other vulnerable people gathered around a central guru. You know the rest. And these days, you might even hear that there's scientific proof for energy, as the proponents of this therapy point to quantum theory.
When we study these spaces, we always see trends, and something that we see with figures like Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza, is a lot of this work on quantum, and it's this very scientific sounding language that often gives a sense of legitimacy to the practices that they promote.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, for instance, isn't exactly a medical doctor. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science, then did a postgrad in chiropractic at Life University in Georgia. Quite a rigorous course by all accounts, and once you're done, you can call yourself Doctor of Chiropractic. You know, what some people call back crackers, muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, cartilage, nervous system, that sort of thing.
So again, I would also be offering a word of caution to people who see the term doctor or therapist. Make sure that they are a doctor in exactly the area that they claim to have a degree of expertise in.
Dr. Joe's 6-day retreats cost just over $4,000. They offer numerous opportunities to get beyond yourself and connect to this boundless, life-giving source of energy.
Find it. Connect to it. Stay aware of it.
Besides retreats, Dr. Joe also sells meditations, lectures, online courses, music, clothing, supplements, and vitamins. Maybe Suzanne was right. Maybe Aiping was ahead of her time. Remember John Patrick, the guy from Rutgers, arguing for more research into the effects of the wellness industry on health outcomes? He was particularly excised by wellness practitioners who pushed their therapies into unproven areas in a bid to get year-on-year growth. Just to be clear, he's not talking specifically about Aiping or Dr. Joe Dispenza.
People, in order to continue growing their business or gaining financially, are interested in doing deceptive practices. I just find that to be awful. And I just don't know what kind of person that is. It's very sad to me. You know, I feel bad for people who engage in those types of activities.
But maybe those kind of people 120% believe in apple cider vinegar or hormone treatments or vitamin C. Maybe they do. Maybe they're not setting out to make money necessarily. Maybe they just truly believe it.
I don't know of cases that we can point to where that is true. I don't know anyone. We wouldn't have this conversation if it was a person is sitting there going, you know what, really, I have a number of things that I think are really healthy for me. And then I'm just going to just keep it to myself and be comfortable with it. And if you want to know about it, you don't have to subscribe. You don't have to buy it. I'm not out there marketing it. That's not what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So the miracle cure should be free, ideally.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably not going to be, marketed to you. You know what I mean? That to me is very peculiar.
John Patrick doesn't have a problem with many of the standard recommendations from the wellness industry. Much of it, he says, is solid advice.
Eating whole foods, avoiding processed foods, exercising, lifting weights, all of the things that I would consider are characteristics for a healthy life. And then we get into this weird component where individuals are creating narratives around their philosophy or extensions of their health philosophy into kind of a business.
I'd like to welcome on the stage Belle Gibson.
And a classic example, apple cider vinegar. Did you catch that astonishing Netflix series? Pause here and scoot forward about 90 seconds if you don't want to know how it ends.
I have no reason to doubt her.
Because in her case, it's true.
Apple cider vinegar is about Belle Gibson. Not Mel Gibson, Belle Gibson.
She's just like you. You do look incredibly well. I've never felt better.
The Australian woman who pretended she had brain cancer, then pretended she'd found a natural plant-based way to dissolve her non-existent tumour and got away with it for ages.
She had a book deal with Penguin. She was developing an app with Apple. So she was legitimized by these big brands as well as many media corporations. And then she was exposed in 2015 as a fraud. And myself and another colleague were really interested in this scandal. And while a lot of the media attention was on Belle Gibson as an individual and her psychological motivations, questioning whether, she was informed through greed or whether she had a mental illness, we thought the more interesting question sociologically is how this very ordinary individual was able to develop trust and a sense of expertise and authority and influence that rivaled medical professionals. So this is really the starting point of my research in this area.
What really interests Stephanie, Dr. Baker, is the way in which Belle Gibson tapped into a general lack of faith in the medical establishment. And that was pre-COVID. It's an element of something she calls the low trust society.
What we mean by that is this growing sense of low institutional trust that I would argue has actually intensified even since she was exposed as a fraud in 2015. So really demarcating herself from the medical establishment by offering this back to basics lifestyle. And even in her book published by Penguin, she talked about how she felt really ill taking chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And, in many ways, she was juxtaposing her natural lifestyle, her plant-based approach with mainstream medicine.
Ah, yes, mainstream medicine. Nice if you can get it. I don't know what it's like where you live, but it's just about impossible to get a doctor's appointment within 3 weeks here in Tamaki, Auckland, New Zealand. Little wonder people are looking elsewhere.
The wellness industry, broadly defined, is so appealing to people because there's a lot of problems with medicine, right? There's a lot of problems with how one interacts with their physician, when they see their physician, what their physician is versed in to communicate. You go to the doctor oftentimes to fix a problem, not to go there to become more optimal.
And as John Patrick says, when you're in seeing your doc, if you get in there, their advice probably won't be anywhere near as appealing or exciting as the transformative offerings of the wellness sector.
What you get is this razzle-dazzle, these emotional appeals, and there's a bad guy that you have to overcome. Like, it's just like big pharma, big government, the medical establishment. Like, the way that these arguments are positioned is that there's a bad guy and that I'm not a bad guy as the influencer. I know the secret.
The links between alternative therapies and conspiracy theories are something that was pretty hard to miss during COVID.
Moving on now to other global stories. New Zealand's anti-vaccine protesters who have been showing opposition to vaccine mandates continue to demonstrate outside Parliament as Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern labelled the protest.
The Convoy for Freedom protesters arrived from all corners of New Zealand. They then gathered at the capital ahead of the first speech for the year by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. The largely unmasked protesters are...
Many of the protesters we speak to say they're not aligned to a group and are here as individuals, driven by personal experience, such as losing jobs due to the vaccine mandate. But there are darker elements, like references to QAnon, the US far-right conspiracy theory. The MP
New Age and conspiracy theories, says Professor Peter Knight from the University of Manchester, both see themselves as counter-knowledges that challenge what they see as received wisdom, turbocharging an existing account of what's happening by claiming that it is not just the result of chance or the unintended consequences of policy choices, but the result of a deliberate, secret plan.
And the more there's an uncertainty, and we certainly had this up to the millennium.
Anka Rector.
And now we've seen it again with the pandemic. This is when cultic groups, especially sort of small, obscure outfits, they really ramp up.
In a lot of contexts, you see people profiting from this guru status. So they'll have retreats that they run or books that they're selling. And so it's very easy to follow the money and assume there's a kind of financial motivation.
Which makes me wonder about Aiping's lieutenant, Sarah McCrum, and her new online course about using energy for wealth creation.
This is a very beautiful energy. It's present inside you already and all around you. It might feel different from what you're used to. That's why we're activating it, so it becomes stronger inside you.
I tried to explain the premise of Sarah McCrum's book, Love Money, Money Loves You, to Dr. Baker.
It's like how to manifest wealth, using your Chinese master's energy. Is there a lot of that around? Is it gone from healing to wealth manifestation? Is it a natural course of events?
There is. I mean, I don't think this is new. So if you look at a lot of the self-help literature, there were two periods of growth. The first was in the 1930s, and we see the rise of books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
First published in 1936, spurred on by the Great Depression, it sold 30 million copies. Another burst of self-help literature started in the 1960s. Fun random fact, apparently cult leader Charles Manson was a fan of the book. He used what he learnt from How to Win Friends and Influence People to get other people to kill for him.
And so these books that promised financial and economic success were very attractive. So we've seen a history of that. But really, when you look at a lot of the self-help literature, it falls into three areas. So it's self-improvement in the domains of health, wealth, and relationships. And again, this is not something new. It's something we've seen transpire in various ways in the 20th century.
And yeah, it continues making money, at least for the people that are writing the book anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people who are attracted to a lot of these texts in some way want to change their life, right? You have to have a degree of hope to even be interested in these texts. And we are living in a cost of living crisis, so it's totally understandable, I think, that people are attracted to a lot of these figures who promise to tell you how to get rich quickly. I mean, I would put someone like an Andrew Tate even in that bucket, who sells self-help courses that are premised on modern wealth creation techniques. This is an enduring concern for many people, but particularly resonant with our current economic environment.
That is true. And what we shouldn't do, I think, just picking up on your comment about people who do get sucked into these things, we should not say, what an idiot you are for believing it, should we? Because we're all idiots.
That's it. And I mean, ultimately, people are seeking self-transformation. And I think that in and of itself, in a time of difficulty, is a noble pursuit. It's just the ways in which people can take advantage of that through offering these get-rich-quick scams or healing modalities is where it's quite predatory, and that's where people need to be protected rather than mocked or criticised.
I felt so embarrassed to of all those people who are going to laugh at me for believing that I could believe in something as intangible as energy.
Warwick. Remember him? The Kiwi actor living in London in 2003, using Aiping's energy therapy to cure his HIV.
Because I'm experimenting on myself as a human guinea pig, really, in this process.
The process didn't work, leaving Warwick with a fundamental life choice: to keep trusting in Aiping and her life technology, or to break faith and start using Western medicine.
In the end, he has to just hopefully be able to face himself and think that he's made the right choice. If he wants to make that choice, and it really comes out of his free will.
Warwick's doubting flatmate, Thomas.
But if it comes from being kind of sucked into the organization and being kind of brainwashed into that safe haven of the energy bank dogma, then I don't know, I'm not too happy about it.
We left Warwick, his friend and flatmate, at a critical juncture.
In the next 6 months to a year, one can project that possibly you may either get infections that we need to treat, or you may decide that actually we do want to start antiretroviral therapy depending on your symptoms.
Yeah.
And continuing your course will exclude that.
Warwick's doctor, Sarah, had given him 5 to 10 years to live if he kept avoiding conventional treatment, antiretrovirals, which allow people with HIV to live with the disease into old age.
If you empty your mind, empty your body, you can receive quantity fresh energy.
Or did he carry on with this alternative treatment from the New Zealand-based guru, Aiping Wong? Because Energy Bank manager Sarah McCrum, author of Love Energy, Love Your Money, claimed it could still work.
It's not the process itself that's wrong. It's always us that have to change.
That the failure was Warwick's. It was his lack of belief, his morals, his behaviour, which had derailed his energy treatment.
So in the end, if you want to change your health, or if you want to change any other results in your life, you have to change your behaviour.
Warwick's hopes and disappointments captured on film by BBC director Annie Kossoff.
Did they really ever believe that they were going to be able to do what conventional medicine couldn't? Did they actually believe that? Why did they let me in? Was there a bigger plan there?
At the end of the doco, the Energy Bank offers Warwick a deal. They would cancel his $75,000 debt, and Warwick would be invited to join Aiping Wong at the lodge for face-to-face sessions.
Come to New Zealand so that you can be with the master and in her presence every day kind of thing.
Quite an offer. Aiping's VIP followers, you remember, paid nearly $750,000 each for the privilege of that sort of access.
I thought, oh God, here we go. You know, they'll get him away from everything, and heaven only knows what other deconstruction's going to go on.
So what became of Warwick? Last thing Annie Kossoff heard, in 2004, Warwick had left London and was heading back to New Zealand. Annie feared that Warwick might be further indoctrinated, deepening his belief in Aiping, in universe energy, life technology, the whole shebang.
I don't think realised that Aiping's kind of main headquarters had been established there. So when I heard he'd actually gone back, I thought, oh God, he's lost.
That's ahead of her time. Ep 6 of an 8-ep series. Coming up.
When he first started talking about her, he was in awe of her, there's no question, and this was life-changing for him.
Warwick's former lover.
He was no wallflower, he did not hold back ever. I never saw him hold back. There's only 2 speeds, fast and stop.
Later, I make a personal visit to the heart of this wellness cult. So we are 7 kilometres away. That's coming up on The Lodge. And hey, if anyone out there has some information about this wellness cult and its business activities, whether you're a follower, an ex-follower, or someone who knows someone who is, please get in touch. phil.vine@rnz.co.nz. Thanks for listening. A special thanks to our wellness experts, Stephanie Baker from City University and John Patrick Allen from Rutgers. Big ups to our marvellous RNZ engineers, Ben Pearce, Rangi Powick and Jeremy Ansell. Thanks to my producery colleagues, Liz Garton, William Ray and Justin Gregory. Cheers to Amrita Marks for the stunning tile visuals, Luke Bottle and Robert Stewart in our legal team. My executive editor, Tim Watkin, and the person that makes everything happen, Brianna Uritich-Gregg. Make sure you're following The Lodge wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. You can read more about this mind-boggling wellness cult and see photos of all the characters involved on the RNZ website. Links in the show notes. Shout out to Nick DeFries, Beatnik, for his music. Also, cheers to the BBC and many thanks to Warner Brothers for access to the News Hub archives. Ka kite anō.